the last 6 months, we worked together on how telcos can accelerate their path towards cloud and cloud strategy. And we put this together in a report. We published that half a week ago. And when we see the theme in the industry, right, I think every telco agrees cloud is the way to go, but they all struggle a little bit how to get started from a complexity, capability, and cost approach. So one of the key findings of our joint work is to say, let's look at IMS and let's bring the IMS both in a cloud native architecture and bring it to the public cloud. That can unlock significant and massive savings. So let's go into a conversation on that, and let's start with you, David. So why IMS and voice? Why is that the starting point?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Before we get started, thanks a lot to you guys from BCG and for AWS for the excellent partnership over the last couple of months when we've been building and working on this report. I think voice and the IMS is a very natural starting point, both for the automation and the public cloud journey. And I think both goes hand in hand. Right? Why is that the case? I think first, we are solving a real industry challenge. Yeah. All of the regulators are going to be required to offer voice for the next decades. Yeah? At the same time, you see the declining voice revenue volumes. So operators are faced with the need to bring down costs. Yeah? Secondly, I think we've shown together with AWS that we are capable of bringing down the total cost of running an IMS and voice on 4G and 5G by up to 70%. Yeah, that is a significant saving compared to the legacy deployments. And thirdly, I believe it's a great starting point for a whole capability building journey. Yeah, to give your organization as an operator exposure to the public cloud, to run a network function for the first time on AWS, to see how CI/CD works in a live environment.
I love the capability build point because I think that's absolutely central. So Chivas, in what way do you think the joint solution with NG Voice and AWS helps operators to get started?
So for operators, if you look at the workloads they're used to, typical IT workloads are easy, right? They've done it in the past. In the core and the network side of the house, if you look at these workloads, it has been a challenge because they are regulated entities. They are entities that need to maintain a certain sense of availability. But if you look at the characteristics of this workload, while they have to offer it at high availability, they also have big peaks and valleys in usage. And so to help a engineering organization build and design a footprint in the public cloud, as an example, that allows you to take advantage of the capabilities of the public cloud. You can bring in that infrastructure when you need it. When you don't need it, you bring it down. I think that's learning and the teaching that they talked about. Is like, how do you do that easily? That's one of the places I think IMS allows them to do it.
Perfect. And it sounds a bit like, this is the end-to-end package, right, to get started. And how do we actually get started, David? So what do operators need to do?
But in general, I think there are two different approaches. The first one is where we are the first IMS, the primary IMS in place. So an operator is on the journey to launch VoLTE on their networks, and it's a surprisingly bit of counterintuitive high number. More than 50% of the operators globally still need to launch voice on 4G and 5G. And there we start, from day one with a production environment with a very good kind of migration strategy. And the second kind of group of operators is where there's already legacy IMS in place, and we come as a second IMS. And there typically we start with, selected use cases. We start with, voice for IoT, because we see the requirement, due to the emergency calling in cars, that all of the IoT connectivity suppliers need to add voice to it. Yeah. Second one is disaster recovery. Yeah, great one to run on the public cloud as well. Yeah. Third one is to look at capacity expansion. So we're trying to find the perfect use case to start with, to both build the capabilities internally and to give additional confidence to go for the whole migration on public cloud.
And the reality is some of these use cases you could not do without the public cloud. The disaster recovery one's a great example where you start with infrastructure and your normal DR model would be replicate all of that again, right? But you don't need to do that in public cloud, especially when you think about these assets being a fixed cost in the long run if you're going to run them by yourselves. And you really want to get to that variable cost and over time reduce the cost, which again drives that TCO conversation is, can you find a path? So lots of goodness in moving to the public cloud here.
From the first deployments, what are your key learnings?
I'll start. In all of these cases, remember, these are nationally critical infrastructure companies. They're always going to be, rightfully so, conservative. And so you want people, leaders in these organizations who understand the value of what they're going to be driving. And you want these leaders to be a little bit courageous after understanding what they're going to be driving to get to a path where that TCO goes down, right? So that's part one. Part two is don't try and replicate everything that you have in your data centers and move them over to the cloud, because that is not going to reduce your cost. that is going to continue to keep that same cost basis over time. And then finally, like, it is a change in how you operate. So having your operational teams, your engineering teams really understand how to take advantage of the capabilities in the cloud, using cloud native products that are built like NG Voice, right? They're built a certain way to take advantage of the cloud. Making sure that you're working with partners together to do that. I think those three are key in everything that we have seen in these deployments as they start up.
Okay. David, what's your take?
No, I think it's absolutely to the point. Yeah, don't replicate what exists, but make sure you really leverage automation at scale. Yeah, I think that's important. Make sure you have the whole operations day on board. From day one when you come to the design workshops and so on. And thirdly, you need someone who's making the case internally. Yeah, you need a strong sponsor, courageous leader who's going to run the migration.
Perfect. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.